the main navigation, and the options are as follow. But what if we cannot change the div tag? Sometimes, maybe if we have an old website, we might find that if we modify our HTML or the tags in our HTML, everything breaks, because maybe the CSS wasn't as good as we thought it would be. So if we want to make it semantic without modifying the div tag, then we can use the role attribute. If we add role navigation to our div, we are doing exactly the same as turning the div into a nav. We are saying to the browser, this is not a common tag, this is the main navigation of our website. And that is what the role attribute is for. It sets the element semantic, even though we are talking about elements without semantics, such as a div or an span tag. And the role attribute is not necessarily to use for semantic tags. It will be redundant to add a role navigation to a nav tag, because the nav tag is already a semantic tag and has the implicit role of role navigation. But we can also change a semantic by using this role. Maybe we have a nav tag and we want to apply role footer, because now really, why would we want to do this? It doesn't make much sense to modify the semantics of a semantic tag. So try to avoid this. But then why do we have roles if we have semantic tags and we should follow HTML rules and use a nav when we use a nav? Well, the main problem is that our semantic tags are not enough. We have a lot of semantic tags, but if we think about web apps today, there are many elements that don't have a semantic tag for them. For example, some available roles are alert, dialog, presentation, status, and tab. And this means that if we sometimes, for example, let's take Twitter, when we use Twitter and we leave it open in a tab and keep on working on a different tab in our browser, maybe Twitter has this kind of notifications and it tells us, okay, you have three new tweets to look at. And that is a notification for the status kind, and we don't have any status tag for that. So that is the idea, the main idea of these roles, that we can actually, in a way, create semantic tags that we don't have right now. So it's really interesting to use. We have many, many more roles available. You can later check out this link and find them all in the W3C website. Some of these are available, and they are great for these occasions when we want to put semantics in an element and we don't have the right tag. And besides, there are many times when we are creating a website and the design is a little complicated, and maybe we need to break the rules and use an incorrect tag. For example, it's really common to style form elements, maybe to style a checkbox or a radio button or simply a submit button. And in order to style them, we need to write a different HTML. And if we do this, then we are suddenly facing the problem that our HTML is no longer semantic and it will not show to the user the right way. Those are called custom controls. We have neutral tags with roles, such as the example of the div navigation with the role navigation. So I want to show you this very short example about an span tag that behaves like a checkbox. There are 4 steps to do this. First, we need to select the tag we are going to use. We are going to use an span tag because we are creating a checkbox and we want to use an inline tag instead of a block one. That's why we are not using a div. We are using this span. Then we need to style it to make it look the way we want according to the design. We also need to style the check state because this element is a checkbox and it will be check and uncheck. And last, we will need to write a little JavaScript to make this work as a normal checkbox would work. So let's begin. First, we create our element. We can expand with a class of check. Then we need to style it. In this case, I'm styling the check element with some width, some height, and a border. And I am also creating a check active class for the check state, which is this one right here. Once we have this, then we can move into the adding interactivity part with JavaScript. So we can create an event listener for the click event and toggle the check active class. It's quite easy to do. We click on the element and it toggles this check active class and it works amazing. And that's it. We have a checkbox that is not a checkbox, right? But no. The truth is that this is not enough for accessibility users. This will only be able to use and to be enjoyable by users that have a mouse, a keyboard, and a trackpad and sight. But if a user is using a screen reader, what we have done before won't work for them. We need to make it accessible. And to make this custom element accessible, we will need to provide these 4 things. First, we will need to add a role to this element to be able to describe what this element is, because right now, this element is nothing but a simple neutral tag. So it will be go over by the screen reader. Next, if this is a form element, we need to make it focusable so we can go through it, pushing our tab key on our keyboard. And since this is a checkbox, we need to be able to check and uncheck by using our spacebar. And last but not least, we need to tell the user what this checkbox is for and what the state of this checkbox is. Is it toggle on or off? So to begin with, we apply the role attribute of checkbox, and now, from now on, the assistive technology will tell the user this is a checkbox, even though we are using an span tag. Second, we need to make it focusable by using our tab key in the keyboard. To make this focusable, we can add a tab index of 0. Not all elements are focusable by default. Most of the time, we can find focusable elements such as links or form elements. But if we use an span, the span is not focusable, and we need to make it so. So by adding tab index 0, we make it part of the tab tree, and now we can tab through it. For example, I know you're not seeing my hands, but I am pressing the tab key on my keyboard, and I can tap from the checkbox to the text area below. And I have modified the outline of this presentation so you can actually see very well that I am focusing this text area or that I am focusing the checkbox above. So in order to do this, all we need to do is to add this tab index of 0. Now we move on to the next part, which is be able to toggle this on and off with the spacebar, plus the ability to toggle it on and off by using the click button. So how can we make this possible? With a little JavaScript. For example, besides our add event listener for click event, we need to add one more add event listener for the key down event. And this event will listen to the key we are pressing. And the key we are pressing, if it is 32 or 13, that means it is our spacebar. If we are pressing our spacebar, then we will toggle on and off the check active class. Let's take a look. I will use my keyboard now to toggle this on and off using my spacebar, and it works really well. And if I press with the mouse or with a click, it still toggles on and off. So you can use the keyboard or you can use your mouse to make this work. And we are almost there. To make this accessible, we only need now to add this area attributes. These area attributes will answer two questions. First, what is this? Is this a checkbox for what? What is the aim of this checkbox? What am I actually accepting when I check this? And the second one is, what is its current state? Is it already checked by default or not? First, to be able to target this problem and tell the assistive technology user what this element is, we need to use the area label attribute. This area label will tell the user this is a checkbox, and when you check this checkbox, you will mean I have read the conditions. And then we need to answer the second question. What is its current state? And to do this, we will use an area check attribute, which is a Boolean attribute, and it takes true or false. What we will do now is to modify our JavaScript and CSS to improve it. Our CSS will no longer need the area check class because we can now use this combination of selectors, and we can actually use area check equals true as a selector. And our JavaScript will be easier as well. Let me show you. We no longer need to toggle on and off a class. What we need is to toggle on and off the area check attribute. And we can do this when we use the spacebar or the click. And we can click here and it will work, or we can use the spacebar and it will work. And to show you that this is actually working, I will open Developer Tools. And let's inspect this element. Here it is. It is an span of role checkbox. The class is a load, but it's mainly what gives us this style. And the area check right now is true. It is, in fact, true. It is check. The area label is this is a demo. So if we go and toggle it off, as you can see, it changes back to false, and it turns off the styles that were before, which are these. So it's really easy to use, only it takes time, because if we were to use a normal checkbox, this will be really fast to do. We wouldn't need to do any of this because the original input type checkbox has all this in mind. But great, this is the way that we can actually make an accessible element without using the correct tag. But again, I would highly recommend to use the correct tag if you are going to use this, if you want your website to be fully accessible. But if in any case you cannot use an input type checkbox, then you can do all these previous steps to make a real checkbox that is accessible for screen reader users. And the other part is, okay, how can we actually make sure this is working for every user? Well, it's not really hard, but it takes time. We have two ways of testing our website for accessibility. The first one is keyboard navigation. And the second one is to actually use a screen reader and test all our web apps by using those. The keyboard navigation is the fastest way to check accessibility in our website. As you can see over there, it's only navigation. The keyboard navigation means to use our website only with our keyboard without using a mouse or a trackpad. It is what I have already shown you, that we can actually tab through the elements of our website and toggle on and off things that are over there, like a checkbox or maybe a modal window or a button in a form. And the aim of this text is to, check navigation, obviously, but also to check outlines, which in my previous example, it was this blue dot line, and check events, check if we can, in fact, go through our website and navigate it without any problem, that we can actually toggle elements on and off by using a spacebar, if we can press enter on something and it does what clicking on it would do, and if there are any infinite keyboard loops. Sometimes when we create really interactive elements like modal windows, we find ourselves that if we use our website with our keyboard, suddenly we are into this modal window and we cannot reach the close button. And it might sound really silly, but when we use our website with a mouse or with a trackpad, it is really easy to find the close button and just click it. But when you use the keyboard to navigate it and there is an error or a mistake in our code, we can suddenly be into these infinite keyboard loops that we wouldn't be able to see unless we do this test. So I highly recommend going over your website using only your keyboard, just to have this experience and to find maybe bugs that are around and we didn't see before. The second way of testing a website for accessibility is by using a screen reader. There are many screen readers available. There is Chromebox, which is actually a Chrome's plugin, so you need to have Chrome, and it only reads Chrome. It's not for the computer itself. Then you have NVDA, which is for Windows only. It is amazing and it works really well. You have VoiceOver for Mac, and you have Shows, which is really well known, but it might be a little bit expensive if what you are doing is actually testing or auditing a website, because Shows can be about $1,000 the license. So I don't know about Russia, but here in Argentina, that is a lot of money. Most of the companies cannot afford it. So when I want to check something really fast, I usually go ahead and use Chromebox, because Chromebox is free and it's cross-platform. I don't have any problems to use it in Windows computers or in Mac. So it's really great. It is not, and you must be really careful with that, Chromebox is not the software a blind user will actually use, because the blind user will use software that is not a plugin of a browser, but it is actually a real software that reads all the computer and not only the browser. So I will leave you another link that you can check out later, which is a screen reader user survey of last year, and you can actually see what the main software that are being used by people with disabilities. So for example, the main software is Shows, and the second one is NVDA, and the third one is VoiceOver. The Chromebox is this kind of tiny little thing over here with only 0.4%. Chromebox to test our websites, but don't trust it too much. And the aim of the test of using a screen reader is kind of the same as keyboard navigation, only you will be able to hear what a blind user will hear. So you can check navigation, you can check the interactivity, you can approach basically the experience of a blind user or of a user with really bad eyesight. So it's great, and it does take time and patience, and hopefully you will use headphones if you are work in an office with many people around you. And it can be really hard to use at the beginning because screen readers can read up to 400 words a minute, and that is a lot. That is people that, or a machine in fact, that speaks really fast. So you will need a lot of patience, and I will strongly recommend you to use it maybe for 3 minutes and then stop and go for a coffee or go and rub your cat's belly because you need patience, believe me, especially at first. But it will be great. So go ahead and test your website. Maybe if you don't have time to test it using a screen reader, try to do the keyboard navigation test to be able to assure that everything works correctly. Also work in team, because accessibility is not only a developer's problem, but also if we want to go into contrast issues or people who have daltonism, then we need the designer's point of view. It is not only a developer thing. We need to work in team to be able to assure accessible websites. And also try not to make this an afterthought. I know this is like the most difficult part, but try to little by little implement this test throughout the development of the website. Maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, go ahead and test what you have done so far. So you don't do it as an afterthought. You don't do it when you finally finish the project and you have 2 days off. And last but not least, baby steps. Really, you don't need to have your whole website accessible as long as you kind of fix little problem and then another little problem and then another one. So take your time. It's fine to, you know, make mistakes and maybe just go baby steps. Don't feel overwhelmed by everything you have to do. And another fun fact before I finish is, okay, how do we sell this? I don't really know about your work, but in mine, I work in a digital agency, so we create a lot of websites for a lot of different clients around the world. And we need to offer accessibility and tell the client, okay, this is going to take 2 or more days, but it will be accessible. And the client doesn't usually like it because it is a delay for them and they don't see the point of accessibility. And this will sound really bad, but sometimes we need to sell accessibility to our clients. And in order to do this, we can approach it in different ways. First of all, by law, I haven't been able to research the law of accessibility in Russia, but in Argentina, it's not really good. In Argentina, you only need to make your website accessible if your website is part of the government. Otherwise, there is no law that actually makes your website accessible. So you can have websites that have really bad code and don't have any accessibility in it, and there is no law behind it. But in some European countries, that is a thing and it can be really important. Another way of approaching accessibility for clients is ethics. Your website should be accessible because that is the right thing to do. And things should work that way, but they usually don't. And so ethics doesn't usually work as well. So the last an approach that we can do is the one that usually works, is to actually go ahead and show numbers of how important is accessibility to your website because you have a lot of users that need accessible websites. 50% of world population has a kind of disability, from bad eyesight to maybe an amputee. So 50% of the population may not sound like too much until we compare it to what we usually do, which is browsers. If we talk about 50% of population, we are saying more than Safari users or more than UC browsers and Firefox users together. And that is a lot of people. And I don't know about you, but I had projects before that actually made me fix bugs for Internet Explorer 11. And as you can see, Internet Explorer 11, maybe it is like 1% of the world population right now. I felt like, why am I wasting my time with Internet Explorer if I could reach a much wider audience by making my website more accessible using that time? So I would like go ahead and kind of try to push numbers into your boss or into your clients to actually push accessibility the next step and to be able to take 2 or 3 days and make your websites much better. So that is my approach to accessibility, and I will leave you the slides in GitHub. I will tweet them later, so in case you missed the link, you can check them out too. And I am open to questions if you have any, and thank you for listening. And that's it. I hope you enjoy it.
Yep, thank you very much. So folks, do we have any questions? Okay.
Hi, Eva. Thanks for the talk. Quick note, we have the same law, like only governmental sites needed to be area compatible and stuff. So private companies don't have pretty much any A11Y in Russia. So we are on the pretty same position as Argentina. So you mentioned you and your company, you do a lot of sites for clients, and you mentioned Angular and React and Vue. Do you know, or do you guys use any tools that will, I don't know, like check some silly errors or mistakes, like when you don't have, when your markup don't have, I don't know, some area attributes or something set on your templates, or do you test all this stuff by hand?
We mostly do by hand testing for now, but it will be great. And I hope in this 2018 we can actually implement an accessibility in QA. So what we are working on right now is for the QA team to begin going through Lighthouse. It's a Chrome plugin, so they can check like performance and accessibility, and at least to do this as QA for every website we make. And then manual checks for the website that the clients themselves have asked for accessibility, because manual checks are usually much better than the ones that Lighthouse can provide.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Another questions? And yeah. By the way, as far as I know, you can use Lighthouse from command line right now, probably. So if we have any, oh, okay, we have one question.
Hello, thank you. So my question is, so I'm developing for React right now. So do you think that doing accessibility tags and etc. for each component is enough, or should you add something inside more and more and more? So how much is enough basically when you're doing accessibility?
Well, I think it depends on the aims of the project, because sadly, and if you want to make it like really top of accessibility, it will take you a lot of time. So you have to talk to a client and see, okay, what's the aim? Do you want basic accessibility, middle, or top? If you want the top, then you will need to test a lot, because React with the tags might be a little complicated, and in the future with custom elements, the real custom elements, it will be much harder. So it depends on the aim. If you are looking forward for like medium stuff, then you will be fine by just adding some Mario attributes and doing a lot of testing and checking interactivity. Because the main problem that websites have, it is actually in the survey, is that you get lost by using the keyboard. And that's not really a React or a framework problem. That is a problem when we put JavaScript and we only consider users that have a mouse. And I think that if we go to framework problems, I'm not really an expert, but we need to focus more on, is my website easy to navigate and to use and to interact with, and besides, React and all that. I don't know if I answered that question.
Yep, thank you. So maybe, oh, we have another questions. So many questions today.
Hello. I have a question about web content accessibility guidelines. I did not read it in a long time. So is it still relevant? And are there some maybe contradictions with modern trends with touch screens and high DPI displays?
It kind of a little the connection. You mean grids and high
My
displays?
question is it are there some contradictions in web content accessibility guidelines with modern trends? To modern trends?
Well, the standard is a little old. They are working on the new version of the standard, but I think it hasn't been released yet. I think they are planning it for this year. But yes, it is kind of old in a way, because it doesn't consider, for example, any kind of framework that we have right now. So it doesn't have that in mind. And I think contradictions, I haven't found any, but I won't deny that they are not updated as they should be.
Oh, okay. And are there any special standards for ads in websites? Or maybe some directions in some movement in the direction?
And in the standards, well, you have the main standard of W3C, which is like this Bible of accessibility that is not updated. But at the same time, it again depends on the project, because you may find yourself not exactly following the standards and not going for a certain level of accessibility following the standards, because maybe the project doesn't care about the standards. And that takes us again to the law, because if we go into countries that actually have accessibility as a must for every website, then you have to follow the standard. You have to follow each one of the rules that the standard of W3C has. But if there isn't any law, then you can actually not follow the standard and just do your best with testing and try to to make the best without following the rules.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. So well, thank you very much for joining us. Do you have any questions?
Thank you for coming.
Yeah. I hope we will invite you soon to Novosibirsk in person. So yeah, please share your slides with me on Telegram, and I will.
Yes, I will.
Yeah, I will forward to the community. Yep. So have a good day. Say hi to your digital studio from Siberia. And yep, I will return to you later. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Ну что, друзья, вот сколько народу из вас задумывается вообще про то, чтобы делать что-нибудь такое в своих проектах? Признайтесь честно.
В целом, как бы, когда начинаешь HTML-код сейчас сбивать, он же автоматически в некоторых тегах начинает орать. В принципе,
В общем, все скоро нас... IDE-шки нас будут сами заставлять скоро, да?
ну, это, по-моему, единственный способ, как можно заставить. То есть, к примеру, меня заставили убрать промовскую рамку, которая... Соответственно, мы потом подумали и решили, что мы сделаем ее не вот как она рамка, а сами вот придумали, как